Look around you. On the brick of a forgotten alley, the steel of a rumbling train, or the concrete of an overpass, there are messages. Some are simple names, scrawled with a desperate energy. Others are vast, breathtaking murals that seem to sing with color. This is the language of the street, an art form born from the very surfaces of our cities. But to truly understand what these walls are telling us, we have to go back, not just decades, but millennia. The impulse to leave a mark, to say, "I was here," is one of the oldest human instincts. Ancient hand stencils on a cave wall were a declaration of presence. In the buried city of Pompeii, citizens scribbled insults, political endorsements, and declarations of love on public walls. It was their social media, their public forum. This wasn't art as we know it, but it was communication in its most raw, public, and unfiltered form. Fast forward through centuries, and the impulse remains. During World War II, a simple doodle of a bald-headed man with a large nose peeking over a wall with the phrase "Kilroy was here" became a global phenomenon. American GIs scribbled it everywhere they went, from captured bunkers in France to latrines in the Pacific. A classic "Kilroy was here" drawing on a weathered wooden crate wasn't about artistic merit. It was about connection, a shared inside joke that said, "We are everywhere." It was a tag before the tag existed, a ghost in the machine of global conflict. This set the stage for the modern explosion. The fuse was lit, but the powder keg was the decaying, neglected urban landscapes of late 1960s America. The story of modern graffiti begins not in a gallery, but on the streets of Philadelphia with a teenager named Daryl McCrae, better known as Cornbread. He wasn't trying to create art. He was trying to get the attention of a girl, and he did it by writing his name everywhere. His relentless tagging, from city walls to the side of the Jackson 5's private jet, made him a local legend. He was the first to achieve citywide fame through the sheer, repetitive power of his name. But it was in New York City where this spark would ignite a cultural inferno. In the early 70s, a Greek-American kid from Washington Heights named Demetrius, who worked as a foot messenger, started writing his nickname and street number wherever he went. The simple tag Taki183 written in marker on a subway map. In 1971, the New York Times ran an article about him, and the game changed forever. Suddenly, thousands of kids realized that the entire city was a blank canvas, and fame was just a magic marker or a spray can away. The spray can. This was the key. It was cheap, accessible, and fast. It allowed for a unique aesthetic, the flare of the line, the fade of the mist. It was the perfect tool for a generation of kids in neglected boroughs who felt invisible. If the city wouldn't listen to them, it would be forced to see them. This was the birth of writing, a culture with its own lexicon, its own rules, and its own hierarchy. At the bottom was the simple tag, the signature, the foundation of it all. Then came the throw-up, usually two-colored bubble letters executed quickly for maximum coverage. But the ultimate goal was the piece, short for masterpiece, a vibrant, complex graffiti piece with intricate lettering and characters, a large, intricate, multicolored work that showcased an artist's style, skill, and ambition. These weren't just names anymore, they were artistic statements. And the ultimate gallery for these statements was the New York City subway system. The trains were a moving museum that carried a writer's fame from the Bronx to Brooklyn, from Queens to Manhattan. To bomb a train was to speak to the entire city at once. This was the Golden Age, an era of intense competition and innovation. Writers formed crews, battling for style supremacy. They risked electrocution on the third rail, encounters with rival crews, and arrest, all for the chance to create a burner, a piece so hot it couldn't be ignored. This subterranean art world was documented in the seminal film and the book Transit, which acted as Bibles for a new generation of artists, exporting the culture from the Bronx to London, Paris, and beyond. But the authorities saw this not as a cultural blossoming, but as a symptom of urban decay. In the 1980s, Mayor Ed Koch declared a war on graffiti, a subway car being aggressively cleaned by high-pressure washers, known as the buff, became the city's primary weapon. They fortified train yards with razor wire fences and guard dogs. By 1989, the last graffiti-covered train was removed from service. The subway era was over. While this crackdown extinguished the moving gallery, it couldn't kill the culture. It pushed writers out of the yards and onto the streets, forcing them to adapt. At the same time, the art world began to take notice. Downtown Manhattan's art scene saw the raw energy of the streets and wanted a piece of it. Artists like Keith Haring with his Radiant Babies and Jean-Michel Basquiat with his cryptic Samo tags made the leap from street artists to gallery superstars. This forever blurred the line between vandalism and high art, creating a controversy that rages to this day. From a primal scrawl on a cave wall to a multi-million-dollar canvas, the journey of street art is the story of an irrepressible human need, the need to be seen, to be heard, and to leave a mark. The evolution from a simple tag to a gallery piece is a fascinating story of style and rebellion. But the real power of street art lies not just in its history, but in what it is. It is a living, breathing language that speaks to and for the city itself. When you look at a wall covered in street art, you are not just looking at paint, you are reading the city's diary. It's an uncensored, uncurated, and often brutally honest reflection of a place's identity, its struggles, its joys, and its soul. Each city develops its own unique visual dialect, shaped by its architecture, its culture, and its people. The chaotic, overlapping layers of graffiti, posters, and tags on a Berlin wall tell a story of constant change and reclaimed freedom, while the sun-drenched, politically charged murals of Los Angeles speak to a history of Chicano pride and resistance. To understand this language, you have to appreciate its diverse forms. Let's start with the most misunderstood, the tag. To many, it's just an ugly scrawl, a mindless act of vandalism. But in the context of the street, a tag is a profound declaration of existence. In a sprawling metropolis that can make an individual feel anonymous and powerless, a single, stylized graffiti tag is a defiant shout of, "I am here, I exist." It's the most democratic form of public art. All you need is a marker and the courage to use it. It's about presence, territory, and a network of communication invisible to the average passerby. For writers, reading the tags in a neighborhood is like reading a census of who is active, who is in control, and who is respected. Moving up the scale in complexity, we find stencil art. Perfected by artists like the French pioneer Blek Lerat and made globally famous by Banksy, the stencil is the ultimate tool for guerrilla communication. It allows for a detailed, repeatable image to be deployed in seconds. This speed is crucial for an art form that operates in the legal gray zone. A sharp, black and white stencil of a child releasing a red heart-shaped balloon can convey a complex emotional or political message instantly. It's a medium perfectly suited for witty, subversive commentary that cuts through the noise of advertising and official messaging. Closely related are wheat paste posters, where artists can create intricate illustrations in their studio and then apply them to public surfaces with a simple mix of flour and water. Shepard Fairey's Obey Giant campaign is a prime example of how this method can build a mysterious, pervasive brand from the street up, making people question the very nature of propaganda and public space. Then there are the large-scale murals, the form of street art most likely to be celebrated and even commissioned. These monumental works can transform entire neighborhoods. They can serve as community-building projects where residents come together to paint a shared vision. They can be powerful acts of historical preservation, telling the stories of a community that official histories might ignore. In Belfast, for instance, the famous political murals serve as powerful and often divisive markers of territory and memory, documenting the history of the Troubles from both Republican and Loyalist perspectives. A massive photorealistic mural of a historical figure on the side of a tall building can become a landmark, a source of local pride that anchors a neighborhood's identity. Ultimately, street art is a social mirror, reflecting the world around it in real time. When political upheaval strikes, the walls are often the first to speak. During the Arab Spring, stencils and graffiti became vital tools for dissent against oppressive regimes. In the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement, murals of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor appeared on walls around the world, becoming sites of mourning, protest, and solidarity. This art form doesn't have to wait for gallery approval or museum curation. It responds with the immediacy of a news headline, but with the emotional weight of art. It tackles everything from climate change and corporate greed to mental health and gentrification, forcing public conversations on topics we might otherwise avoid. It gives a voice to the voiceless, allowing marginalized communities to claim space, assert their identity, and challenge the dominant narrative. So when you see a piece of street art, you're seeing more than just an image. You're seeing a political statement, a cultural celebration, a historical document, or a personal cry into the urban void. It is the city's character made manifest, its soul laid bare for all to see. When an art form born from rebellion becomes a celebrated cultural asset, a strange and complex transformation occurs. The raw, unfiltered voice of the street begins to have a very real and often paradoxical impact on the urban environment itself. Street art is no longer just a conversation a city has with itself. It has become a powerful force in shaping property values, tourism, and the very future of urbanism. And this has created a series of fierce debates about authenticity, commercialization, and who truly owns public space. The most potent of these is street art's role as a double-edged sword in the process of gentrification. It often begins organically. Artists seeking cheap rent and large forgotten walls move into neglected, post-industrial neighborhoods. They paint. Their work, full of energy and creativity, transforms the bleak landscape into a vibrant open-air gallery. The area becomes edgy, cool, and desirable. A trendy coffee shop with its exterior wall covered in a stylish commissioned mural opens up, followed by a boutique, then a real estate office. This phenomenon is sometimes called the Banksy effect. A single, famous piece of street art can cause the value of a building to skyrocket overnight. The irony is brutal. The very artists and culture that made the neighborhood attractive become victims of their own success. Rents climb, developers move in, and the original community, along with the artists themselves, are priced out. The authentic, rebellious spirit is sanitized, packaged, and sold to the highest bidder. What once was a genuine expression of community identity becomes a decorative backdrop for luxury condos. This cycle raises a critical question. Is this urban revitalization, or is it a form of cultural erasure where the soul of a neighborhood is hollowed out for profit? This commercialization extends into the realm of tourism. Cities have realized that street art is a massive draw. Districts like Winewood Walls in Miami, Shoreditch in London, or Hosier Lane in Melbourne have been transformed into global tourist destinations. A dense crowd of tourists taking photos with their phones in a famous graffiti alley has become a common sight. This brings undeniable economic benefits. Street art festivals, guided tours, and merchandise generate significant revenue. But it also raises questions about authenticity. When street art is contained within a designated, curated, and often ticketed area, is it still street art? The element of discovery, of stumbling upon a hidden masterpiece in a forgotten corner, is lost. The art becomes less about spontaneous expression and more about creating the perfect Instagrammable backdrop. The line between a living, breathing urban culture and a graffiti theme park becomes dangerously blurred. This brings us back to the eternal debate. Where is the line between art and vandalism? From a legal standpoint, in most parts of the world, the answer is simple: permission. An authorized, commissioned mural is art. An unauthorized tag is property damage, a crime. But morally and culturally, the line is far from clear. Is a thought-provoking, technically brilliant piece of illegal art less valuable than a bland, corporate-sponsored mural? Who gets to decide? Is it the property owner, the artist, the community, or the city government? The context is everything. A tag on a centuries-old monument is viewed very differently than a colorful piece on a derelict factory wall. Many artists would argue they are improving a blighted urban landscape, performing a public service by replacing grayness with beauty and thought. This fundamental conflict between property rights and the desire for public expression is at the heart of the street art movement. So, what does the future hold for this dynamic art form? Technology is already changing the game. Artists are experimenting with non-destructive techniques like a massive, intricate light projection on the facade of a historic building at night, which allows them to make a statement without a single drop of paint. Drones are being developed to paint in massive, previously unreachable locations. Augmented reality, or AR, is creating a whole new layer on the urban canvas, where viewers can use their phones to see digital artworks interacting with physical spaces. The internet, particularly Instagram, has become the new subway train, capable of making a local artist a global phenomenon in an instant and preserving ephemeral works forever. But this also changes motivations, pushing artists to create work that is immediately legible and visually striking on a small screen. As cities increasingly recognize the cultural and economic value of street art, we will likely see more regulation, more commissioned projects, and more designated free walls. But this control will inevitably be met with resistance, because at its core, the spirit of street art will always be about breaking the rules, reclaiming space, and speaking truth to power, with or without permission. It is the pulse of the city, written on the walls for everyone to see.